at California State University, Fullerton, author of publications, high-ranking scholarships, holder of the Polish-American Fulbright Commission, producer, active artist, performer. Dr. Stan Breckenridge will give a lecture today on how to be entrepreneurial in business, necessary skills and competencies. Today's lecture was organized by the Academy of Applied Science in Radom in partnership with American Corner Radom. I invite you all to listen actively. If any questions will pop into your mind, you can feel free to ask them. Actually, it is very likely to see you writing any questions. You can ask them by yourself, or you can just write them on the chat. Then I will ask them for you. You can ask questions also in Polish. Then I will translate them. So, Dr. Stan, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. It's always a pleasure to be involved in various events in Radom, one of my favorite cities, if not my favorite city, because of the wonderful American corner there and my wonderful friendships with Carolina and Ula, I should say, yes. And it's always a pleasure to participate here. And, I thought that I would begin with something so that students don't see me as being any different from who they are, right? Because everyone starts from somewhere, right? And I think often that when perhaps a professor or someone gives a lecture, it's segregated in a sense in students' minds from where the student is at that time. They may see this professor as someone who is elitist, as this person who perhaps wasn't a child, right? And so I thought that perhaps I should start with me being a child, right? And so hopefully that will give you some ideas about what you want to be asking, because that is the point of this discussion, is that I really and sincerely hope that you ask questions or make a comment, and I'd be more than happy to say something. So let me start giving you a brief description of how I came to the music industry. This will be my focus, although a number of the points that I will be speaking about with respect to skills, character, entrepreneurial skills, etc., they are going to be related to all fields. So let me start. When I was a young person in primary school, my mother heard me sing one day. And so unbeknownst to me, she decided to have a couple of her women friends over for tea and coffee and some pastry. And so I was home that day. Of course, she knew that. And so she asked me to sing in front of her friends. I was extremely nervous. I was about maybe eight, Osham Lat, yes? And so I thought, oh my goodness, I can't do this. I'm so nervous. I'm gonna die, right? But then I began to sing and to look at the elation, to look at the excitement on these individuals' faces by hearing me sing. That put the spark in me. And every single human being, at some point in their life, there's a spark about something. Now, I realize that there are those who are more and there are those who are less fortunate, but still, there's a spark about something. For me, that was that spark. After that, in terms of what do I feel influenced me to be an artist, was my environment. I grew up at a time of the 1960s where this was soul music. I grew up at a time where there was music around me every single day. I grew up at a time where my family, my friends, those I went to school with, music was a part of my everyday life. So I was surrounded by music, and I was thinking, and I have thought, it, you know, thinking about my past, it was no wonder that I'm involved in this field because it was everywhere. People often ask me, so how did I learn how to play? How did I learn how to sing? Well, I was self taught. Although my family, we were a middle class family, um, there were six Jechi. And so, you know, my parents could not afford lessons, right? But I had such a great desire to learn to sing and to play piano. I had no piano at home. I recall when I was about 9 or 10 that I would sweep a particular church, a church that I was not attending, but I knew that they had a piano. And I remember that the pastor there that he would say, "Well, if you like to play this piano, you'll have to sweep." I said, "Oh, I would love to, sir." So I began to sweep the church, and I would begin to play things that I had heard on the radio or things that I had sung. I also had an uncle who had a piano in his home. He lived quite far away. However, every time that my family, this was on my father's side, every time that we visited him, I would go and I would play his piano. And then he taught me certain songs. I think perhaps this is a song that everyone has heard of, right? It goes dum da 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 boom ba da da, right? And so this was my introduction into harmony and to playing what I thought was a song. By the time I was in the sixth grade, which is about 11, 12 years old, so uh, Yedinasta Dubanastilat, I was with a singing group. This was a singing group very similar to at that time of the Temptations, or let's say a boy band, let's say like the Jackson Five or NSYNC, etc. So I was with this group all the way through high school. This group became famous. This group had won a contest that is similar to the Voice of Poland and a number of the contests, competitive shows that we see worldwide. This group was called the, the Somatics. This for me was my life. Um, by junior high school, right, which would be equivalent to your middle school here in Poland, we began to do a number of shows and talent shows, etc. Well, at that time, my parents really realized that I had a great desire for music, so they bought an organ. And I was so elated to have this keyboard. Let's just call it, although it was an organ, right? But it was a keyboard, right? And I was so excited. And so I taught myself how to play. Once I entered the university as an all music students, we had to show a certain level of proficiency on piano. And this was during our fourth year because in the States, to get a Bachelor of Arts, it's 4 years as opposed to 3 years here in Poland. In any case, I did play a piece, eh, but I should mention prior to that, how did I learn how to read music? Well, I had a choir director in high school by the name of Mr. Lawrence Shore. May he rest in peace. And I asked him, "Sir, what are the notes on the staff lines?" He says, "Well, for the treble clef, it's every good boy does fine for the lines and face in the space. And the bass clef, it was great big dogs fight animals. And in the space, all cows eat grass." And so then I memorized that. And this was from high school all the way through the university. I had memorized that to the point that I could read music without having a single lesson. And that was, I believe, in large part or due in large part to the fact of my great desire, which is key to any area, whether you be a mathematician, a scientist, an attorney, a doctor, etc. What is your desire? That was mine. It's interesting that I'd like to just mention this final point about this. The piece that I played for my proficiency exam, I was, let's see, that would have been, I was about 22 years old. So, yes, I played Chopin's Prelude in E minor. And it's interesting that I'm living here in Poland, and that was my first classical piece that I learned. And so now I am here. This is, there's something about this. Anyway, so this is how I started. Now maybe you have a similar beginning. Everyone has a beginning, no matter how accomplished he or she is, right? We weren't born with the ability to do what we do when we become an adult, right? It takes time. Okay, so my lecture here is going to be on creative business ideas. Now, although that my focus is going to be on the music, as I mentioned earlier, some of the things that I'm going to mention are relative to any field. And I'm going to speak about two main points that's related to everyone. Excuse me. The first being skills, the second being character, entrepreneurial attitude in any field. And then thirdly, which is going to be more about the business of music, but there are a number of points that could relate to any field as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just present some bullet points. I'm just going to make some statements. And hopefully this is going to encourage you to ask some questions, because this is the best way to learn is engagement, right? Is to be involved in something. Not, it's great to just listen, but it's also good to be engaged in a conversation. Now, I must say to you, as a professor for 30 plus years, um, I was teaching in California. This, the attitude among students in California and Poland are quite different in that students in California, they ask a lot of questions. In fact, they ask too many questions. They don't listen sometimes, right? But still, I really enjoyed when they were asking questions because it meant that they were listening, right? And so I would really like to hear from you. Now, I should mention this. I do have some experience with teaching in Poland. I've taught at UMCS in Lublin, I've taught at UJAT in Kraków, and at Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznan. So I have some idea as to what sorts of attitudes that you have about learning at this level. So let me just briefly talk about skills. Now, most of these points are going to be related to music, but you can think about how this relates to what you have in mind also. So for music, a skill, do you sing? Do you play an instrument? Do you compose? Do you write lyrics? Are you computer savvy? This is very important. Do you have organizational skills? Or are you able to learn, retain, and present information? This last point is really important because it applies to every field. Are you able to learn, retain, and present information? And in music, this is called an agent, right? An agent, or it's a manager, or it's an organizer. It's a person that learns. It's a person that has knowledge about his or her artist. Could be more than one. It could be a soloist. It could be a band. And does this person know how to manage? So my point being this, There are people who are really good at talking, right? I am not so much, and I would venture to say that most artists usually don't like to talk about themselves, right? And so therefore, it behooves them to get an agent, to get a manager. And this is also true in other fields. For instance, if you are an author, right, to be able to, as we say, shop means to go about the business of trying to secure a publishing contract, right? It's best to have an agent to try to secure that publishing contract because he, she, or this agency, right? They know how to find the best fit for what your product is, and of course, this is, has to do, this has to do with inventions. This has to do with ideas that you have, not just music. So as you think about your particular, let's say that you want that your pursuit is is a medical doctor. What skills do you have that you believe that based upon your experiences of seeing skills do they have? And what skills do you feel that you are good at or that you could be good at? Also consider what is it that you feel that you need to learn to enhance your skills. And this is really important, and that is to not to be so shy, which actually has to do with my next area, and that is I'm speaking about character. So let me just go right into that. And again, I'm just giving you some bullet points so that hopefully that's a question that you will be asking. So this section I have titled Character Entrepreneurial Features. First and foremost, do what you like. Do what you like. This may change, right? I would say that I wanted to be a singer first. And then, sorry, I wanted to be a pianist first, piano player, let's say. But it changed. It changed to the fact, no, I want to be a piano player who sings, right? And these are based upon those experiences. Believe in yourself. There are people who will tell you that you're not good or people who are very critical of you. But if you feel this is what warms your heart, this is what makes you feel good. As Quincy Jones, the producer of Michael Jackson's Thriller, this major producer, I'm going to paraphrase him. I met him and he said this: if you like your music, so will others. I'll say it again. If you like your music, so will other people. So don't focus so much on what people say that they don't like about what you do, right? Focus on, again, do what you like. What do you feel represents you? The second point I like to mention with respect to character and the spirit of entrepreneurialism, if that's a such word, if not, I just made one up, is this word patience. You have to have patience, right? And without patience, you will become a jack of all trades, right? Meaning that you will know a little bit about a lot of things, right? But not enough about one thing, right? And so it's very important to know that you have patience. In time, you will succeed. In time. You also may have to sacrifice something. You may have to sacrifice buying a new car, or you may have to sacrifice buying any car, right? Because you have to put your money, your resources towards something else. Say that you are a scientist and that you have this idea that you think is going to improve the quality of life for human beings. Well, rather than buying that car, perhaps You want to use some of your sources as well as those resources from others that believe in you to put your ideas forward. You may have to sacrifice time with your loved ones and friends. I remember when I was growing up, I would be playing piano because that's what I love to do, especially when my parents bought this organ when I was in middle school. And my friends were either playing baseball or well, usually basketball. Well, actually, we played all three: basketball, baseball, and football. That is American football, not soccer. Yes. And so my friends would often get upset with me because they would say, "Why aren't you outside with us playing basketball?" And so forth. So I said, "Well, I have to practice." And they would say, "Practice? Why?" And of course, I told them, "Well, because I have this love, I have this great desire for music." And many of my friends, as I mentioned to you, I grew up in the 1960s. This is 2023, so it gives you an idea how many years I've been on this planet. That a number of my friends, when they see my Facebook post, they often comment, "Wow, I remember when you used to practice. You didn't play with us outside, and now I see why." So believe in yourself. Another idea: have a plan. Have a plan. Plans are always subject to change. Have a plan that you plan to do this, you plan to do that, your short range goal, your mid range goal, your long range goal. You this is what you're going to do as a way to try to achieve those different levels, right? But have a plan. And it could be something written down, it could be something that's in your mind, right? But just have a plan. And I think another very important is to have a mentor. I would not be where I am were it not for those people who were in my life. And I'm going to begin with speaking about my parents. I'm going to speak about my uncle, who I mentioned earlier, who had the piano. I'm going to speak about my high school choir director. I'm going to speak about a piano player singer who I knew of gospel music. I'm going to speak about the many Polish musicians who I have come in contact with here in Poland since 2005. Um, all of these people have been a part of my life. And, and to say that I made this journey on my own would not be true. Nie prawda, right? I had to have either a mentor or to have people who, as we say in the States, who were in my corner, right? People who believed in me. And this is very important because your parents and your close friends are often going to be those who are going to believe in you. Now, sometimes your parents may not show that. Now, of course, I'm just giving you some experiences about myself. I don't know your personal situation, but I know that my mother really wanted me to pursue music. My father did not. He saw that I was very good in mathematics, and he saw that I was very good in chemistry. And so when I was in middle school and high school, I was taking those necessary courses as a way to become either a mathematician or a chemist, right? Um, but I said, "Dad, I'm sorry, uh, this is not who I am. This is not what I want." Um, I'll tell you a funny story. And so then, when I was about 20, and this is not to brag anything, okay? So please don't misunderstand this. But I had to prove something to my father. I had to show my father I could succeed in music. When I was 23 years old, I bought a Corvette. And and he said, "What? Where did this money come from?" I said, "Well, Dad, it came from music. I've been performing a lot." And then I bought a house. I was also 23 years old, just out of the the university with my Bachelor of Arts. And it was at that moment that my father looked at me. This he was a person that was in the war, right? And he didn't cry, right? But I caught him shedding a tear, right? I caught him crying, and I knew he was very proud of his son, that he stayed the course and he fulfilled the desire that he had. And of course I showed my father this. This was very meaningful for me. I also want to mention, let's see, I think I have about 10 minutes here. I also want to mention that you want to, this is still with regard to character, your character building and developing your entrepreneurial skills. Continue and establish friendships with like-minded people as well as others. These are going to be the people who are going to believe in you. Continue and establish friendships. Have conversations. You're going to have disagreements. This is a part of growing up, right? These are those people who are going to support you in the future. Don't be afraid of criticism. People will criticize you. But if you have some of the earlier points that I had mentioned, if you are earnest, if you're serious about what it is that you want to accomplish for yourself, while at the same time giving to humanity, stay the course. This also means that you have to network with other people. And network does not have to be only those within your discipline. Doesn't have to just be all scientists if that's your field. Doesn't also have to be those individuals that are involved in medicine. Doesn't only include those people who are involved in accounting, or those people who are involved in philology, right? You want to avoid burning bridges. I have seen too many times that, of course, I had to learn this too. Avoid burning bridges. And I can tell you this with full confidence and assurity. Many of my opportunities within the music field are the result of people who I met, who I had a good relationship with. Point in case, I am here speaking with you from Poland because of a person who I befriended at my university in California, California State University, Fullerton. His name is Dr. Michael Steiner. He was a Fulbright scholar here in Poland in 2003 at UMCS in Lublin. He was the person who spoke with me and said, Stan, students like you should give a proposal to the Fulbright. In his opinion, because of that one person that influenced me to be sitting here speaking with you. And I will venture to say with all honesty, I don't think I would be sitting here were it not for his suggestion. I really don't, because I had traveled to other countries. Yes, I knew something about Poland, but to be honest with you, Poland was not on my first list, or wasn't at the top of my list in terms as a country where I would live. Well, guess what? I've lived in Poland more so than I have in any other country because of my desire for Polish people, Polish culture, Polish, for me, art. Of course, that's a long story, but it was because of person. So this is why I say network with other people. I have many opportunities of performing, whether it be meeting famous people, being on TV, having some very high profile performances. Most of the time, it came from a person who knew me, a person who I had contact. So this goes back to this point about continue and establish friendships, not only for the purpose of what they can do for you, because you can do something for them as well. But it's about helping each other. If we help each other, we can all succeed. There's enough room for everybody, right? I also want to mention this is just something just a bit different. For whatever field that you are in, when you are at a loss as to what is legal, what avenue should you take, always think about securing legal representation. Now, for me, my legal representation could be an attorney. My representation could be a person who deals with contracts. My representation could be an accountant, right? Fortunately, I have a manager. My manager has contacts with all of those different areas here in Poland. I also want to mention, I think I have about 5 minutes. Be open to new ideas. Listen, be open to new ideas. Have an attitude. Be very eager to learn. You don't know everything. In fact, the older you get, the more you realize what you don't know, right? The older that we get, we realize what we don't know. For those people who are in some form of discipline where it involves you being on stage, be it a public speaker, be it a musician, a dancer, an actor, be aware of being on stage, how to speak, how to walk, how to talk, how to behave, how to dress, what are your emotions. Believe me, people who are looking at you on stage, they see everything. Is it suitable for what it is that you're speaking about or what you are doing? For instance, I would not dress in a tuxedo if I were going to be playing a concert of punk. And yes, I did do that once. I was at a concert. I remember in Los Angeles, I was invited to play piano for this punk band. And I thought, should I wear a tuxedo? No, right? So anyway, yeah. Make an effort to believe, to make people believe that you believe in what you are doing. This is a grave mistake in music. There are singers, let's say, and I say singers is because of singers use words. A singer is singing about something, and the audience, they have an idea that this singer really doesn't mean what they're saying, right? And this is true with anything, right? That if you are speaking about something, have some type of emotional response, have a desire, show this as you're speaking. Read, and read. Stay informed about your discipline. For music, you must stay informed about music activities, stay informed about artists. I highly recommend that you read Billboard magazine for an example. Stay informed by reading and validating an idea, argument, etc. Don't believe something because one person wrote it or one person said it. Validate that because it puts you in a very peculiar situation, right? When that's not correct. And then just a point or two about the business of music, which is an enormous field, right? The business of music doesn't have to be a musician, although that's helpful to know something about music. And of course, once one is in the business of music, one will learn, right? But to know what is a producer, what is an executive producer, what is an arranger, what about marketing, what about social media, which I'm sure most of you are very savvy at. What about copyright infringement? Now, there is this current case going on that I just read yesterday in the news. This case involves Ed Sheeran's 2014 song, Thinking Out Loud. Well, the Marvin Gaye estate is suing him for infringement because it's they're stating that Shireen's Thinking Out Loud is very similar to Marvin Gaye's 1973 song, Let's Get It On. Well, I've listened to both versions, and perhaps you may have a question. What do I think? Is there infringement? Anyway, so that will hopefully engender you to ask some questions. And then I think I'm just going to end with just speaking just very briefly about some of the things in which I have noticed in terms of Polish students and American students, or Polish, the Polish market, as well as versus the American market. I would say that in America, we have this saying in Spanish, España, si se puede, si se puede. Yes, I can. Period. That's it, right? It is not, no, I can't, right? And again, to some of my other points about character, believe in yourself. This is an America. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist here in Poland, but I believe for those who have traveled to the States, and for those who have yet, when you get there, you will see that. Americans will take the simplest little thing and say, yes, I can make a business from this, right? You know, even though it may seem absurd, right? A positive point about Poland that I want to mention, among many things, is that many students have at some point learned how to play and sing. But one doesn't know that unless you encourage them to keep singing or to play. I have often said, I can walk in Warszawa, I can walk in Radom, I can walk in Łódź, Kraków, Szczecin, and I can grab any 10 people. I would say that the majority of them probably have played an instrument and or sung, whether it be in a choir or sung in school. Yes? As opposed to the States, I couldn't say that. I would say maybe 50%, right? So this has been my experience. Now, it's also been my experience because I have attended many cultural events here in Poland. And I have been invited by many families here in Poland to participate in their activities. All of the activities here and I have sung, right? And I see people playing, and this is something that I think that here in Poland, that when one goes to the, right, you'll see that this is something to cherish here. Getting into the music scene is a difficult task, but it's not impossible. There are 340, 350 million people in the States versus what 45 million Poland, or maybe it's 80. No, I think it's 45 million, maybe. Okay, right. So there are a lot of people. And going back to this notion of si se puede, many people in the States believe they can sing, but they can't, right? Many people believe that they play an instrument very good, but they don't, right? But they do it anyway. So this level of competition is really great there, right? Stay the course. The American market may seem easier because there's such diversity there, right? But keep in mind, everyone is doing what you're doing to market themselves and then some. If you think that you're savvy on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, blah, 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 they're doing that too, and even more, right? Uh, but this is not to say, again, that you cannot succeed. Now, here's something that I have noticed. And this is not to speak about, something that's negative, but I've noticed that in America, particularly in church, is that the congregation encourages young people to sing and play, even though that they can't. They say, "Oh, this is so beautiful. You sing so lovely," right? But this idea of encouragement, not to put the person down. Now, I'm not suggesting that Polish culture puts people down, but I have noticed the difference that in America, people slightly talk about more of what you do good, as opposed to in Poland, it is what you've done wrong, you know? And so, of course, this is not with every institution, not with every person, but I'm just saying, just from a general person's idea, right? This is what I have noticed. And I remember that Claudia Kovalik, when I began to work with her when she was 15, this was one of the things that she said to me. She said, "Wow, uh, I never really worked so much with a person who talks about the things that I do good." I said, "Right, because I mean, this is what you want to develop, right? You know, you don't want to, you don't want to develop something bad because that means that it gets worse, right?" So anyway, but of course, I had to point out certain things, right, that perhaps that she could improve on, which of course she has, and others who I have had time with. So I believe that my time has expired, and so now I turn it over to Miss Magdalena. Please, if you would be so kind.
Okay, now, are there any questions from our guests? Okay, if not, then let me ask one thing because I absolutely agree. This is quite an inspiring speech, I would say. And congratulations on knowing Poles because Polish people, because it's quite true, I have to admit. Although it's tough, although it's tough, yes, it would be much
Dziękuję.
easier to have this attitude, as you said. Yes, I can. But looking at your childhood,
Tak.
it seems it was impressing for me. It is quite impressive that you started at the age of 8 and you consistently through all your life uh, uh, um, kept the same goal. You were very persistent, and hearing you, it seems that it was very um, inspiring, easy road, but I assume it was not. That there had to be some very bad times or difficult situations. And what my question is, how do you deal with this kind of situations? Because I see that now you are very self-aware and self-confident, but probably at the age of students, of all students who are
Right.
listening now, probably they are lacking, as you said, also as Poles, some self-confidence, and maybe this they doubt in their way, in their goal. So how did you deal with this hard times?
Yes, that is an excellent question because, right, it may seem, Michael Jordan said something, the famous basketball player, right?
Mm-hmm.
He said there was this child that came up to him and said, "Wow, you are the greatest player." And Michael Jordan's answer was, "But you didn't see me when I was 12."
Mm-hmm.
Which was such a profound comment.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I may have this appearance of being successful, of having an
Mm-hmm.
easy life, of having people always tell me, "Si se puede." yes, I can, right? But
mm,
I had many difficult times. I had financial problems, right?
mm,
I had friendship problems. I had problems with a girlfriends.
mm,
I had problems with education, right? Although I considered myself a good student, uh, there were times when I was not a good student, right? There were times that I decided I would side with a friend rather than perhaps what I knew what was right. And I'm thinking of a particular situation when I was in middle school. There was a friend of mine who, for some reason, um, had said something to one of the bad boys in school. And so the bad boy got together his group of friends and told my friend that, well, wait until after school. I'm going to get you and we're going to basically beat you up. So my friend learned about this and I ditched school. Ditch
mhm,
meaning that I didn't go to school
mhm,
that day so I can be with him. Now it may seem okay, well that was a nice friendly thing to do, but I should not have did school because when my father found out, right, that's a different story, right? Yeah, and you know, um, there were difficult times when I was at the university level and I was performing. I was going to my classes. I had several of my professors that did not like me performing. And of course, in hindsight, I understand why, right? They wanted me to focus on what they wanted me to do because uh, at the university, I was a vocalist and I was singing classical music. Well, I knew that's not what I was going to do. And so, therefore, I thought it was important for me to be with a band or to be performing solo while I was going to the university. And it was through that experience where they almost did not graduate me because they thought that I did not adhere to their advice, you know. But as it turned out, they saw that I had value, etc. And then, of course, I did graduate. Now, I also want to point out that when I graduated with my Bachelor of Arts diploma, I did not go into the master's nor the PhD right after that. I had a family, I had a wife, I had children by that time. And so, therefore, I had to get a job, And so, this job was performing as well as doing some other jobs because to live in California is not inexpensive, let's say, right? And so, therefore, I had some hard times, but still, the music was a part of me. Music was something that I suppose if I wasn't going to be successful, I wasn't going to give up on it, let's say, right? So, yes, I have had hard times, but I stayed the course.
okay. This is quite impressive because these hard times also happens in everyone's life. And just one more question. Um, you mentioned that you appreciate very much people who made you the way you are now. You mean your parents, your sisters, and talking to students, I meet. A lot of opinions that we all are looking for a mentor. Students usually say that if I knew someone who would help me, if I knew someone
Uh-huh.
who knows how, to do it, then everything would change. And I also think that the great power lies in people who are surrounding us. Sometimes these are parents, sometimes brothers, sisters, sometimes this is our friend. And what was the moment when you understood that you don't have to look for a person who is someone out there, some huge celebrity or huge success person to make you to help you or to support you how did you understood it that you don't have to look for anyone special, you have all the special people surrounding you?
Excellent question. So I would say all of those people who I mentioned earlier, beginning with my mother, right? Of course, I didn't realize that at age, but in hindsight, I must have felt that, right? And of course, this happened many times throughout my life. I suppose that the moment in which I knew someone really cared about me outside of my parents, right? Because parents, there's this unconditional love, right? You know, I mean, they will love you if you sing terrible, right? You know, and so I when I came in contact with my high school choir director. That would be the first person outside of my family. And how and why I realized this was because he believed in me.
Mm.
He did. I wasn't looking for it. You know, this was something because it was actually him that encouraged me to apply to a particular university. It was him who encouraged me to apply to a particular honor choir that ended up touring the U.S. It was he that encouraged me to audition for a particular choir where I had my first international experience, and this was in Japan in 1970. So I suppose maybe as young people, we may assume that we're looking for a celebrity to encourage us, or we feel that this is what we really need for a push, let's say, or to motivate us. As I think about my life, no, it's more about that person who gave you knowledge of something that you did not know.
Thank you very much
So
for that.
for me, it started there. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your answer. Okay, so are there any questions? Anything came up to your mind? Okay,
So I know there must be some students. Now, there must be some student. I am pleading, ask a question. There must be something.
you can write it down if you want. You can write it on a chat. Okay, so as there are no questions anymore, thank you very much for your lecture. It was really inspiring, and I hope that our students will did enjoy it very much. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you very much, Carolina, for organizing this event and this possibility to hear such an inspiring lecture.
Well, thank you very much for having me here, and I do look forward to perhaps getting some questions. Maybe some students will be writing something down, and please feel free to send them to me. Carolina has all of my contact information.
Okay, we'll do
Thank
that.
you very much. I'm afraid the chat is not working because I got information that chat is only available for team members. So maybe this is why we don't have any questions from students.
Okay, then we will
anyway, thank you very
gather all the questions and we will forward it to you.
Dobrze.
Thank you
Bardzo
very
dziękuję.
much for today. Dziękujemy
Thank you
bardzo.
so much.
All the
Dziękuję.
best to
Do
you.
widzenia.
Do widzenia. Thank
Do
you very
widzenia.
much.
Bye bye.
Bye.